Books and Bubbly. I'm Stephanie, and this is the playlist where I talk about books I love while drinking something bubbly. And today I am reviewing The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst. Now, I got this book a while back from one of my subscription services and tore through it. I was invested. So let's see why by checking out the back cover copy. 25 years ago, 5 heroes risked their lives to defeat the Bone Maker, Eklor, a corrupt magician who created an inhuman army using animal bones. But victory came at a tragic price. Only 4 of the heroes survived. Since then, Kreia, the group's leader, has exiled herself to a remote tower and devoted herself to one purpose: resurrecting her dead husband. But such a task requires both a cache of human bones and a sacrifice. For each day he lives, she will live one less. Kreia would rather live 1 year with her husband than 100 without him. But using human bones for magic is illegal in Voss. The dead are burned, as are any bone workers who violate the law. Yet Kreia knows where she can find the bones she needs: in the battlefield where her husband and countless others lost their lives. But defying the laws of the land exposes a terrible possibility. Maybe the dead don't rest in peace after all. 5 warriors, 1 broken, 1 gone soft, 1 pursuing a simple life, 1 stuck in the past, and 1 who should be dead. Their story should have been finished, but evil doesn't stop just because someone once said, "The end." So, warning, there are obviously going to be spoilers in this review. So, to start off, what I really loved about this book is the magic system. The magic system in this book was pretty unique and really well thought out, and it was unlike magic systems that I've read about before, and it felt like it added a lot of depth as well as magic to the story. It was easy enough to comprehend and understand its workings and its limitations. And I also really like the variety of bone magic available, from being a bone maker like Kreia, and I apologize if I'm not saying her name correctly. That's one thing with fantasy. I always feel like I'm probably not pronouncing their names the right way. Same way as like Hermione and Harry Potter for like the first 4 books until she actually gave us a pronunciation guide. But Kreia, our protagonist, and then there's also bone wizards. I think there's also like a bone reader or bone seer, but there were just different abilities that certain people had with bones. And it was just a really unique twist on a magic system. The plot and the overall story was really enjoyable and easy to read, and it really played up its fantasy setting. I think the story is unlike other fantasy work I've read, and it was dark at times and really painted the horrors of war really well, but also had some levity at times, and that feeling of, fighting for the right thing is always worth the losses. It explores what happens after fighting the battle that leaves deep wounds, even if your side won. And how do you carry on after that? What does your life look like? Kreia's anguish around losing her husband Gent is real, and you feel it. You feel how hollow her life has become. And though she manages to bring Gent back for brief periods, she too is practically no longer living without him. In fact, every time she brings him back, it requires a blood sacrifice, as well as time from her own lifeline. She's trading her life for his as much as her magic allows her. I also liked how she used her magic to fill her home with the constructs. I was even worried about some of her dolls during certain scenes, even though they're just animated objects. Like there's a scene at the beginning. So I'm on page 4 of my copy. A construct made from a rag doll and animated with dog bones trotted over to his bed. It patted the linen sheets, smoothing them with its floppy hands. "Keep an eye on him, please," Kreia told it. She continued down the stairs, sidestepping another construct. She'd made this one to clean the tower, but it had malfunctioned years ago, and it scrubbed only a single step. Smooth and concave, that one stone gleamed like polished silver. Kreia hadn't had the heart to remove the bones that animated the dutiful broken creature, and it could be several more years before the last of its power would finally wound down. "Beautiful work," she told it. It made a noise like a purr. Again, it's an inanimate object, but I'm like, no, it's really humanized and really cute, and like, it's really nice to see that, she treats even her little constructs with such care that it just, I don't know, to me it really added an element to the story. I also think that in this book, the dialogue worked really well for me, And it kind of had that right balance of humor, hope, and kind of in a way despair, which is kind of what the story is somewhat about. So some excerpts that I really liked from the book. So on page 22, so it's after she's brought her husband back to life. She twisted to look up at the rafters, where now 5 of her ragdoll constructs peered down at them. Useful, though, especially when you're indisposed. Oh, is that what we're calling it now? Indisposed? Like I ate a bad fish? You looked like a bad fish. Nice. He pushed himself, slowly, gingerly, up to sitting, and looked down at his chest, which was streaked with a thin smear of blood. He wrinkled his nose. And I assume the smell of rotting fish is me, too? Sorry, is there time for a bath? Krea's heart gave a little lurch. She knew what that question really meant. How long will I live this time? She wished she didn't have to answer. Her mouth felt dry as she tried to formulate the words to tell him as gently as she could. She didn't have to tell him. He read it in her face. He guessed. An hour? A day, if we're lucky. A day, he repeated. Then he smiled at her and covered her hand with his. I'll take a day. The look in his eyes made her feel more alive than she'd felt in months. She smiled back, and all the lonely hours and days fell away. He added, and I'll take a bath. She helped him stand. His balance wasn't the best after he first woke, but the spell had returned all his muscles. He had been able to walk on his own in minutes. What time is it? He asked. Nearly dawn. Excellent, so we can watch the sunrise together. Unless it's raining, or snowing. What time of year is it? Again, he wasn't asking the key question, which was, how long was I dead? And then another excerpt I really liked. So page 62. So this is when her friend Zara has come to talk to her and realizes what Krea has been up to these last 25 years, including keeping her husband as alive as possible. Shifting in front of Zara to remove the fabric, Krea blocked her view, and then she stepped back. She'd only unwrapped the linen from around his head, but it was enough. Zara would have known that face anywhere, even in death. Gent. Yes. I wasn't grieving because I hadn't yet said goodbye. Zara stared at him, his face ashen, but oddly, he's not very dead. Oh, right now he's very dead. I mean, he looks as if he died a few days ago, not 25 years ago. She knew death as much as she tried to surround herself with life. All the guests she encouraged, all her servants, lovers like Gwyn, they were to balance out the death that dominated her work, her memory, and her dreams. Krea, dearest, tell me, why does he look as though he just died last week? It doesn't make sense. I saw him fall in the plains 25 years ago. We all did. You did. Krea didn't answer for a while. She stared at her late husband's face. With one finger she stroked his sunken cheek, and then she began lovingly rewrapping the linen. Did he or did he not die on the plains? Zara demanded. She'd mourned him for years, missed him, reviewed every last second that led to his death. If he'd survived and Krea had hidden it from her, from all of them, from the world, all of Voss had mourned the fallen hero, who had sacrificed himself for everyone. If she'd kept him secret, he did die that day. And then she just goes on to talk about how she knows how to bring him back. Another excerpt that I really liked. So again, they're still, Zara and Krea are still talking. She couldn't hide her shaking hands as she gave it to her. Zara studied her. I see your fear, Krea. You know what you're doing is wrong. I know what I'm doing is dangerous. So yes, I'm afraid. Afraid of me? Afraid of failure. Zara sipped the tea, and grimaced. I like the afraid of failure part. And then another excerpt that I really liked. It's a page 192. So they're off asking one of their friends to come join them. Strawn, I'm not sure how to say that. Amura, Strawn pleaded, I have a chance to heal. You healed me, but they're still stuck in their old pain. If I go with them and prove that the past is the past, I can help them move on. Can't they move on in a way that doesn't mean breaking the law and endangering your life? There are guards posted on the wall. Why do you have to risk yourself? If I didn't help my team when they needed me, I wouldn't be the man you married. You don't have to prove anything to me, Amura cried. You don't need to be a hero anymore. You're a father, a farmer, and a husband. Why can't that be enough? And then lastly, another excerpt that I really liked. So page 255, they're off to see a Grand Master. So the servant bowed so low that Zara thought his head was going to bop on the floor. Forgive me 1,000 times, but Grandmaster Lauren is currently busy. There's nothing he could be doing that is possibly more important than the news we bear, Zara said, unless he's dying. He's not dying, is he? The man swallowed hard. No, your greatness. Delightful, Zara said. Then tell him to put his pants back on and greet us. As the servant scurried away, Strand shifted uncomfortably. In a low voice, he said, I thought you were going to be diplomatic. Whatever gave you that idea? Zara asked. Jen defended her. She did allow him a warning to put on pants. So again, the characters, I really like the dialogue that they have. Really adds to the story. There were two that I didn't tab that I also really liked. So there's a scene where, do you trust me? I know you want me to say with my life, but in the interest of complete honesty, I'm going to have to go with sometimes. And then lastly, this time, we aren't going in order to be heroes. This time, we're going for the people we love. That's why it'll be different. That's why we'll win. Moving on from the dialogue, the pacing is also a highlight in this book. It's fast-paced, it doesn't drag. I do think that Durst easily could have added scenes to slow it down and stretch it out, but I appreciate that she didn't. She kept the story moving. Keep her moving. Which is apparently something that does drive me crazy when there's just scenes to slow stories down when they don't keep the plot moving. So I do appreciate that she does keep it moving. And the story even begins, well, mostly, with an action-packed scene that both shows her desperation as she steals bones from a recently deceased girl at her funeral and uses magic to do it. It's a great way to show us the world, the characters we're following, and establish the rules of magic. I also really appreciated the secondary cast of characters and that they were individuals enough that I wasn't confused about who was who. They were sometimes morally gray and just trying to do the best they could. I also liked Eklor's motivation and his presence as a villain. Sure, he was a bit hammy sometimes and twirling his mustache in the scenes, but you understood his motivation. Now, there are a few things that I wish could have been a bit more clear, and they include, is their world like ours? Is it modern, or is it more medieval times? At times their society seems so simplistic, but then it feels like they're modern and speak like we do and have the same level of humor. Another thing that I wish had been fleshed out a bit more was the tone. Sometimes it felt kind of YA, even though the characters are supposed to be in their 40s, they were heroes 25 years ago. They talk like they're in their 20s and sometimes behave like it, even though there are a lot of references to not being as young as they were in the war. Do they age slowly so young adulthood lasts decades in their time? Sometimes it felt kind of hard to connect with these characters when they're set up to be older and wiser, but then act kind of immaturely. One of the characters even leaves his small children behind without sparing a thought about it, or at least we're not privy to it. And then lastly, there is a lot of time spent on characters having conversations about and repeating the action we just saw. I can keep up. I don't need a play-by-play of what I just read. So tell me, have you read The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst? Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time on Books and Bubbly.